Tonight, we're going to take you to one of the most toxic places on Earth, a place that government officials and gangsters don't want you to see. It's a town in China where you can't breathe the air or drink the water, a town where the blood of the children is laced with lead. It's worth risking a visit because much of this poison is coming out of the homes, schools, and offices of America. This is a story about recycling, about how your best intentions to be green can be channeled into an underground sewer that flows from the United States and into the wasteland. That wasteland is piled with the burning remains of some of the most expensive, sophisticated stuff that consumers crave. And we discovered that the gangs who run this place wanted to keep it a secret.
He said if we don't leave, we may get beaten up.
What are they hiding? The answer lies in the first law of the digital age. Newer is better. In with the next thing and out with the old TV, phone, or computer. All of this becomes obsolete electronic garbage called e-waste. You know, my computer seems like such a smooth, clean machine. What's inside it?
Lead, cadmium, mercury, chromium, polyvinyl chlorides. All of these materials have known toxicological effects that range from brain damage to kidney disease to mutations, cancers.
Alan Hershkowitz is a senior scientist and authority on waste management at the Natural Resources Defense Council.
The problem with e-waste is that it is the fastest growing component of the municipal waste stream worldwide.
What do you mean fastest growing?
Well, we throw out about 130,000 computers every day in the United States.
In the United States alone?
Correct. And we throw out over 100 million cell phones every year.
And here's what that looks like. At a recycling event in Denver, we found cars bumper to bumper for blocks in a line that lasted for hours. Most folks in line were hoping to do the right thing, expecting that their waste would be recycled in state-of-the-art facilities that exist here in America. But really, there's no way for them to know where all of this is going. The recycling industry is exploding, and as it turns out, some so-called recyclers are shipping the waste overseas where it's broken down for the precious metals inside. Executive Recycling of Englewood, Colorado, which ran this event, promised the public on its website, your e-waste is recycled properly, right here in the U.S., not simply dumped on somebody else. That policy helped Brandon Richter, the CEO of Executive, win a contract with the city of Denver and expand operations into 3 western states. Tell me what the problem with sending this stuff overseas is.
Well, you know, they've got low-income labor over there, so obviously they don't have all of the right materials, the safety equipment to handle some of this material.
Executive does recycling in-house, but we were curious about shipping containers that were leaving its Colorado yard. We found this one filled with monitors. They're especially hazardous because each picture tube, called a cathode ray tube, or CRT, contains several pounds of lead. It's against U.S. law to ship them overseas without special permission. We took down the container's number and we followed it to Tacoma, Washington, where it was loaded on a ship. When the container left Tacoma, we followed it for 7,459 miles to this place, Victoria Harbor, Hong Kong. It turns out the container that started in Denver was just one of thousands of containers on an underground, often illegal smuggling route, taking America's electronic trash to the Far East. Our guide to that route was Jim Puckett, founder of the Basel Action Network, a watchdog group named for the treaty that's supposed to stop rich countries from dumping toxic waste on poor ones. Puckett runs a program to certify ethical recyclers, and he showed us what's piling up in Hong Kong.
I mean, it's literally acres of computer monitors. Is it legal to import all of these computer monitors into Hong Kong? No way. This is absolutely illegal, both from the standpoint of Hong Kong law, but also U.S. law and Chinese law. But it's happening.
We followed the trail to a place Puckett discovered in southern China, a sort of Chernobyl of electronic waste, the town of Guiyu. But we weren't there very long before we were picked up by the cops and taken to City Hall. We told the mayor we wanted to see recycling. Mayor's going to ride up front. After you. Very nice car. So he personally drove us to a shop. Let me explain what's happening here. We were brought into the mayor's office, and the mayor told us that we were essentially not welcome here, but he would show us one place where computers were being dismantled, and this is that place, a pretty tidy shop. The mayor told us that we would be welcome to see the rest of the town, but the town wouldn't be prepared for our visit for another year. So we were allowed to shoot at that location for about 5 minutes. And we're back in the mayor's car, headed back to City Hall, where I suspect we'll be given another cup of tea and sent on our way out of town, with a police escort, no doubt. And we were. But the next day, in a different car on a different road, we got in.
This is really the dirty little secret of the electronic age.
Here's a CRT stand.
Oh yeah.
So they've been dismantling the CRTs as well.
A little bit of everything in here, and this is the place where they're clearly doing the burning.
Greenpeace has been filming around Guiyu and caught the recycling work. Women were heating circuit boards over a coal fire, pulling out chips and pouring off the lead solder. Men were using what is literally a medieval acid recipe to extract gold. Pollution has ruined the town. Drinking water is trucked in. Scientists have studied the area and discovered that Guiyu has the highest levels of cancer-causing dioxins in the world. They found that pregnancies are 6 times more likely to end in miscarriage, and that 7 out of 10 kids have too much lead in their blood.
Open, uncontrolled burning of plastics, chlorinated and brominated plastics, is known worldwide to cause the emission of polychlorinated and polybrominated dioxins. These are among the most toxic compounds known on Earth. We have a situation where we have 21st century toxics being managed in a 17th century environment.
The recyclers are peasant farmers who couldn't make a living on the land. Destitute, they have come by the thousands to get $8 a day. Greenpeace introduced us to some of them. They were afraid and didn't want to be seen. But these are the hands that are breaking down America's computers.
The air I breathe in every day is so pungent, I can definitely feel it in my windpipe and affecting my lungs. It makes me cough all the time.
If you're worried about your lungs and you're burning your hands, do you ever think about giving this up?
Yes, I've thought of that.
And why don't you?
Because the money's good.
It struck me, talking to those workers the other day, that they were destitute and they're happy to have this work.
Well, desperate people will do desperate things, but we should never put them in that situation. You know, it's a hell of a choice between poverty and poison. We should never make people make that choice. Oh my goodness! Look at the Ash River here. Oh my goodness!
It's unbelievably acrid and choking. What are we seeing here?
This is an ash river. This is the detritus from burning all this material, and this is what the kids get to play in.
After a few minutes in the real recycling area, we were jumped. Several men struggled for our cameras. The mayor hadn't wanted us to see this place, and neither did the businessmen who were profiting from it. They got a soil sample that we had taken for testing, but we managed to wrestle the cameras back. But the question is, what are they afraid of?
They're afraid of being found out. This is smuggling. This is illegal. A lot of people are turning a blind eye here. And if somebody makes enough noise, they're afraid this is all going to dry up.
Back in Denver, there was no threat of it drying up. In fact, it was a flood. And Brandon Richter, CEO of Executive Recycling, was still warning of the dangers of shipping waste to China.
You know, I just heard actually a child actually had died over there from breaking this material down and just getting all these toxins.
Then we told him we'd tracked his container to Hong Kong.
This is a photograph from your yard, the Executive Recycling Yard. We followed this container to Hong Kong.
Okay.
And I wonder why that would be.
I have no clue.
The Hong Kong customs people opened the container
Okay.
and found it full of CRT screens, which, as you probably know, is illegal to
Yeah, absolutely.
export to Hong Kong.
Yep. I don't know if that container was filled with glass. I doubt it was. We don't fill glass and CRT glass in those containers.
This container was in your yard, filled with CRT screens, and exported to Hong Kong, which probably wouldn't be legal.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's not. It was not filled in our facility.
But that's where we filmed it, and it turns out we weren't the only ones asking questions. Hong Kong Customs intercepted the container and sent it back to Executive Recycling, Inglewood, Colorado. The contents were listed as waste, cathode ray tubes. U.S. Customs x-rayed the container and found the same thing. We showed Richter the evidence, and later, his lawyer told us that the CRTs were exported under Executive Recycling's name, but without the company's permission.
I know this is your job, but unfortunately, you know, when you attack small business owners like this and you don't have all your facts straight, it's unfortunate. You know, you can.
But here's one more fact. The Federal Government Accountability Office set up a sting in which U.S. investigators posed as foreign importers. Executive Recycling offered to sell 1,500 CRT computer monitors and 1,200 CRT televisions to the GAO's fictitious broker in Hong Kong. But Executive Recycling was not alone. The GAO report found that another 42 American companies were willing to do the same.
We burn so much coal in this country for electricity that every year that process generates, listen to this number, 130 million tons of waste. Most of it is coal ash, and it contains some nasty stuff. Environmental scientists tell us that concentrations of mercury, arsenic, lead, and other toxic metals are considerably higher in coal ash than in ordinary soil. When coal ash is disposed of in dry, lined impoundments, it's said to be safe, but it's often dumped into wet ponds. There are nearly 500 of them across the country, and in those cases, the ash can pose health risks to nearby communities.
We get about 48%, nearly half of the electricity in this country from coal.
Jim Rower is one of the top lobbyists for the power industry.
Coal is going to be around for a long time.
And we really can't get rid of coal.
We shouldn't get rid of coal.
Well, should or shouldn't, we can't. And coal makes waste. Would you say that the industry has done a good job of disposing of the coal ash waste?
We can do better.
Does that mean no?
Well, we had a Kingston spill.
That's Kingston, Tennessee, where last December a giant retention pool of coal ash buckled under the weight of 5 decades of waste.
All the power lines and everything have been knocked out.
1 billion gallons of muck shot into the Emery River like a black tsunami.
One person in the house, he's alive.
Engulfing homes, uprooting trees,
Everything's gone.
and throwing fish out of the water.
No, don't eat the fish, please.
Residents woke up to an apocalyptic moonscape of ash bergs everywhere.
This stuff is just sitting there steaming.
The spill was 100 times larger than the Exxon Valdez, and it was all coal ash.
You'd never heard of coal ash before Kingston?
Never.
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 Wasn't a problem.
Well, it was a problem, we just didn't know.
The problem is, where do you put all that stuff? Here, the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, dumped up to 1,000 tons of coal ash every day into a wet pond near the plant, slowly amassing a waste cake 60 feet high. Some of the ingredients, according to the EPA, arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, cadmium, and other toxic metals.
You know, some people say that this is a poisoned meadow.
I guess that's, one way to describe it. It just doesn't belong here. It needs to come out.
Leo Francendisi is an environmental Mr. Fix-It. He was sent by the EPA to clean up this mess.
And in the wrong circumstances, coal ash is dangerous. Breathing it, that's dangerous.
The summer heat can bake the ash into a fine talc-like powder that can wreak havoc on your lungs.
And this is all coal ash right along here.
So while the government has never formally labeled coal ash a hazardous waste, it's being treated as such here.
Is that all coal ash?
Yeah.
As we left the site, we were scrubbed clean, as was our car.
Oh my goodness, look at this. Does this, every car that goes through the site goes through this?
The site comes through this.
Gary Topmiller lives right on the river. He had a front row seat when the spill covered his dock.
Now, what the doctors did tell me was, get out of there. And I said, I don't have any place to go.
So how do you live? You don't go out on the water?
No, we don't go out of the house.
From the house, he sees scientists collecting samples to analyze just how bad the water is. The river looks clear, but Topmiller says that's deceptive.
Okay, this comes out of right here.
Right, it comes right
and I should shake it?
Turn it upside down and start shaking it. And this is what the river looks like once that stuff gets suspended in it. And how they're going to get that all out of the river, I don't have an idea.
Most of his neighbors have packed up and left. Go down the river and you pass home after home that are deserted. The hubbub of children replaced by the hum of heavy machinery. Those left behind say the noise is one thing. What really infuriates them is executives from the power plant telling them that coal ash is as safe as dirt.
We have broken the trust of...
Anda Ray oversees environmental policy at the Tennessee Valley Authority, which is responsible for the spill. I asked her how toxic she thinks coal ash is.
I'd say that the constituents, the things that are in the coal ash, are the same things that are naturally occurring in soil and rock.
So is it like dirt? Would you say that? Would you say that sentence? That stuff is like dirt?
That ash material is higher than dirt in two areas, and that is arsenic and thallium. And we are monitoring those and the effect on the water.
So, would you swim in this river today?
Yes, I would.
She later retracted, remembering the advisory.
We've advised people not to swim in the river where there's ash.
I then asked about company reports that repeatedly questioned the stability of the ash ponds.
Should the TVA have seen this coming? You were warned repeatedly.
Lesley, there were red flags that have been noticed all through the years. And we recognize that those red flags should have been addressed, but yes, we missed them, and we don't ever want to miss them again.
The spilled ash is now being loaded onto trains and sent off to a dry landfill in Alabama. Right now, coal ash disposal is regulated by the states, some of which have strict rules, some hardly any at all.
EPA can be a force for good.
The new head of the EPA, Lisa Jackson, is reviewing whether the federal government should get involved by labeling coal ash a hazardous waste, which would mean much tighter regulations and oversight.
Why wouldn't you right now, this minute on 60 Minutes, declare that coal ash is a hazardous waste?
EPA, in making a regulatory determination, has to look at a number of factors, including the toxicity of the material and how it's currently managed. But that's done according to law. And I have committed that no later than December, we will make a regulatory proposal with respect to this material.
The industry opposes calling coal ash hazardous waste. They're pushing for another solution, recycling.
That hill over there might be 40 feet of coal ash.
Ted Yoakum, a lawyer in Virginia, says recycling can breed its own disaster. He says that in 2002, the state's power company, Dominion, got rid of some of its excess coal ash by giving it to this golf course in Chesapeake.
Wow, how many tons of coal ash, do you know, did they use to build this golf course?
We know that they put at least 1.5 million tons.
Million tons.
Yes.
For conditional use permit to construct and operate a golf course.
In this city council meeting, a consultant hired by the company that built the golf course assured the mayor that coal ash was safe for reuse.
It, in every aspect, it's the same as dirt, as it's been explained to me. I'm not aware of any negative aspects of it at all.
The mayor then turned to a Dominion executive.
Is there any environmental concerns we should be aware of?
No, sir. We at Dominion Power are fully in compliance with all the federal and state regulations.
2 years later, this internal company study about handling the ash for the golf course recommended that workers use impervious gloves and particulate filtering respirators due to potential health risks.
With children, birth
Robin Pierce and her neighbor Stacy Moorman live across the street from the golf course.
It was said that they were told they should wear respirators and bodysuits. Nobody came up and down either one of these two streets and handed out wardrobe for us.
But
our children were out there playing in the yard, breathing the stuff. How does that happen?
Also, Dominion's internal risk assessment warned of the dangers of coal ash leaching into the water supply. To prevent that, the contractor who built the golf course was supposed to build a 2-foot barrier under the coal ash and one 18 inches on top. The contractor's engineer certified this was done. But Attorney Yoakum, who represents townspeople who are suing Dominion, suspects it wasn't.
As you can see right here, it's right at the surface.
Oh my
Insects.
God. That's coal ash? Of course it is.
Insects have pulled it up. You can see how it flies away.
Last year, the city dug into the golf course, did a test, and found elevated levels of toxic metals in the water.
With all the knowledge that Dominion had about the coal ash and the lead and the arsenic and beryllium and all the poison, to put it in this environment is just an outrage.
That water test was just for the golf course. Dominion told us EPA testing shows no harm to residential wells around the golf course.
I invite anybody from the companies who have put it over there to come to my house and have dinner, and I will use that tap water.
Stacy and her neighbors think it's too risky to drink the water. So after Dominion refused to provide them with bottled water, they began trudging to a local church where the city pipes in guaranteed clean water.
Is that how you get your drinking water?
Yeah, we use it for brush our teeth and take baths.
Dominion declined to give us an interview, but most power companies rely on recycling because it cuts the 130 million tons of coal waste every year in half. The industry calls recycling beneficial use.
Don't even beneficial for who? The only people it was beneficial for were for those utility companies that had to get that stuff off their hands because they were already in violation with stockpiling too much. That is what beneficial use meant.
But the EPA and the Bush administration endorsed beneficial use, and now coal ash is recycled in dozens of ways. As cement substitute, for instance. It's also placed under roads and in deserted mines, and it's added to products from carpets to bowling balls to bathroom sinks. While the industry says the uses have been studied, I asked Lisa Jackson whether the EPA knows if some of the recycled products are safe.
Schoolroom carpeting.
I don't know. I have no data that says that's safe at this point.
Kitchen counters.
The same.
50,000 tons of coal ash byproducts have been used in agriculture. Now, what's being done through EPA to look at the use of coal ash in agricultural products? Anything? Is there a study? Is there?
I'm not sure that there's any study out there right now.
How did we get to a place where coal ash is in products without anybody knowing?
We're here now because coal ash at this time isn't regulated material by the federal government.
Right.
If the EPA declares coal ash a hazardous waste, lobbyist Jim Rower says beneficial use would die and the cost of disposal would skyrocket.
We look at that and we're looking at something on the order of 12 to 13 billion
Billion.
Billion.
And who'd pay for that? We know, the customers.
Environmental protection doesn't come cheap.
He says the current state-by-state regulatory system may not be perfect, but it works.
Could you say right now that the disposal in all the coal ash plants today are safe and that they're all doing a proper job?
What I can guarantee is that they're going to do their best to manage coal ash safely so that you don't have a release like Kingston.
Are all these plants safe?
That's what the state regulations are all about, to ensure the safe management of coal ash.
But you're not saying they are safe. You're playing word games with me. You're not saying they are safe.
You want me to guarantee that?
Yeah, I do.
They're
I think
absolutely
everybody
safe.
Yes,
Well,
I do.
What I can say is that state regulations and the utility management practices are put in place to ensure, with a goal of safe management of coal ash.
I don't think many people really trust the utility industry. I'm sorry to tell you.
You're not the first one to tell me that.
Plastic is everywhere. It's not unusual to see water bottles or grocery bags wash up on our beaches. But surely if you traveled far enough away from people and cities, you might be able to find a pristine beach untouched by the plague of plastic, right? Well, we decided to find out. This summer, we traveled to Midway Atoll, a small group of islands midway between the U.S. and Asia. It's an American territory best known as the site of one of the most important battles of World War II. Today, the islands are closed to the public and home to a host of exotic animals, including a charismatic seabird called the Lesley albatross. It's not easy to get to Midway. Visiting involves a long permitting process and a chartered plane from Honolulu to the middle of the ocean.
We're almost midway to Midway right now from Oahu.
After 3 hours, tiny slivers of light appear, a postage stamp in the vast Pacific. As soon as we landed, it felt like we'd tumbled down the rabbit hole into a curious wonderland. There are so many birds on the atoll, we could only get here after dark, once they'd settled down for the night. As we made our way inland, the albatross chicks were oblivious to our caravan. But by daybreak, it seemed like we'd found paradise, a tiny atoll surrounded by turquoise waters. Spinner dolphins patrol the coastline. Endangered monk seals and giant sea turtles bask on its white beaches. And of course, the birds. So many birds, over 1 million flapping, snapping, chattering, Lesley albatross, the largest colony anywhere in the world.
And they just don't get out of the way. Some are friendlier than others, just like people.
Amanda Boyd works with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which oversees Midway. Every day, its beaches are the scene of small acts of courage and clumsy crash and burns. Once they're off, the albatross can spend months at sea, venturing thousands of miles, but returning to the same spot and the same partner. A relationship that begins with more preening and chest pumping than a Miami nightclub.
Oh my gosh, to watch them dance and as they're courtshiping. When you find a pair that has actually been together and they're in sync, it's mesmerizing. They know each other's cues and it's like art. It's beautiful, it's inspiring to watch that.
Inspiring and loud. Honking lovers who are mostly ignored by their neighbors. If any place should be unspoiled, it's Midway. The atoll is blissfully isolated, off limits to the public, and protected as part of one of the largest marine reserves in the world.
Jeez,
So it was disturbing to see this.
What are those orange and yellow things?
Harbor booms.
Kevin O'Brien oversees marine debris removal in the region for the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. Hundreds of tons of plastic have been retrieved from Midway in the last 2 decades. He showed us this year's pile, a veritable department store of discarded debris.
Here, an intact CRTV screen.
A whole screen.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. So you've got enough things you can sort it, I guess.
Toothbrushes. We find an incredible amount of toothbrushes. Tires. These can be dangerous because the young monk seals often will get curious and stick their snout into these eel cones. Sometimes we'll find jugs full of chemicals with the lids still on, which we have to treat pretty carefully because we're never sure what's in it. You know, the label's gone. And we found car bumpers, motorcycle helmets, firemen's helmets, golf clubs, bowling balls.
All this trash ends up here because Midway sits at the edge of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, a vast ocean whirlpool that draws in plastic from coastlines around the world. Kevin O'Brien has been coming to Midway for a decade to survey and retrieve the debris. This is some of what he hauled away last month.
These nets are almost always made of some sort of plastic. Once they've been weathered in the environment, they can become very brittle.
Whoa.
And can easily break down into microplastics.
So this looks like it's breaking apart and going away.
Right.
But it's not.
But it's not.
Long before plastics invaded Midway, U.S. forces repelled a Japanese assault in the Second World War. The Japanese had hoped to use the islands as a bridge to the mainland. The American victory there in 1942 was a turning point. Today, there's a monument to the Americans who died in the Battle of Midway. And if you tour the islands, you find relics everywhere. Decaying artillery, derelict hangars, and beneath the water, the rusting skeletons of old warships, and of course, evidence of the new battle underway here.
We've been cleaning it up for years.
And it keeps coming.
And it keeps coming.
On a walk along one of the beaches, we found a shoreline strewn with bottles and buoys, crates and canisters.
Is this a problem that's unique to these islands?
It's really not. There are beaches like this all over the world. What is unique about Midway is that none of this plastic you see on the beaches here originates here. It's a problem that doesn't know borders.
I think a lot of people see this on their beaches, and it kind of looks like sea glass at first.
Yeah, it looks like a mosaic. It's really colorful, actually kind of beautiful.
Yeah, but what is it really?
But a lot of this is really plastics, you know, and we can sift it here and see what we come up with. Little pieces.
Sure. This is a bottle cap, you can see. And what's the harm with this? Are fish eating this?
Yeah, and the smaller the piece of plastic, and the smaller the animal that can consume it.
Do we know that they definitely have effects on fish?
We don't know that for certain. These plastics become a magnet, essentially, for toxic chemicals that are found in the environment. PCBs, pesticides, fire retardant chemicals. And so the longer a piece of plastic stays in the environment, the more toxic it becomes.
Studies have found these microplastics in everything from supermarket seafood to drinking water. But scientists don't yet know what all that means for our health.
When an adult comes in, they'll make a couple of noises saying, "Hey, I'm back."
But the effects on birds are easier to see. Kelly Goodale, a U.S. fish and wildlife biologist, took us on a ride around Midway to show us the impact all this plastic is having on them.
So the adults have been coming back every few days to a couple of weeks to feed them.
What's happening right now?
It's regurgitating up more food.
Dinner time here might make you lose your appetite.
Whoa! Did you see that squid?
Yeah. That was a whole squid.
Yeah.
That ought to keep you happy for a while.
For all the fish and squid they catch, the albatross bring back plastic too, from that Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
So that could also be
Goodale showed us their nesting grounds.
So here we do have a chick that did die, and as you can see, if you want to take a look at it.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, geez. In here, you see there's so many pieces of plastic.
Oh, you have a plastic bag. And they eat the plastic bags. Why?
You know, these can look like food sources. It could look like a squid to them.
Yeah. So they think this is food?
They do think it's food. And, you know, flying fish, they can lay eggs on floating debris.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will absolutely lay eggs on pieces of floating plastic. So if the adults are out there foraging, they pick up those eggs as well as pieces of plastic in there.
So it's the serving dish for the egg.
Yes.
And of the birds that you end up looking at, dissecting, what percentage of them have plastics in them?
Every single bird has plastic in it.
Every bird?
Yes.
U.S. Fish and Wildlife scientists estimate the birds carry 5 tons of plastic back to Midway in their stomach every year. Some of it, Kelly Goodale collects and catalogs.
A comb?
This one is probably one of the most disturbing ones. This was...
Oh my goodness.
You have bottle caps in here.
This looks like trash from a drugstore.
It pretty much is.
Okay, all of this was inside one bird.
Yes.
Parts of this atoll can look like the site of a disaster. And while Goodale says it's impossible to pinpoint the cause of death in every case, there's no question plastic can be fatal to these birds, either by filling up their stomachs and leaving little room for food, or by tearing up their insides. As these photos from Fish and Wildlife show, that plastic, which scientists say can take hundreds of years to decompose, is often the only thing left after the birds have gone.
Everyone, no matter where you live, has a role in this problem. Even someone in South Dakota, for instance, who has a river near their home and doesn't dispose of their plastic bottle appropriately, might be contributing to this problem.
All the way out here.
All waterways lead to the ocean, and once this stuff gets into the ocean currents can take it anywhere.
Anywhere and everywhere. It's hard to find a place not plagued by plastic. Just then, we got a reminder of what else is at stake as an endangered monk seal paddled by.
What's this guy doing, you think? Is he coming in to eat?
He's coming in, he's checking it out. These are the locals. And whether or not you care about all these incredible species that live up here in this very remote place, it doesn't necessarily matter because there are so many other things that rely on the ocean. People rely on the ocean for their livelihood, fishermen. People rely on the ocean for recreation, tourism. And right here, we have an indicator of the health of our ocean.
You say this is an indicator. What does it tell you?
It tells us that the scale of the problem is massive and it's global.
Every year, coal-burning power plants generate not only electricity, but a staggering amount of leftover coal ash that contains heavy metals unhealthy to humans. Yet, due in part to intense industry lobbying, there are no federal regulations on its disposal. It's left to the states to oversee some of the most powerful utility companies in the country. So coal ash is often just dumped into giant pits that are dug by rivers and lakes, where toxins can leach into nearby water and soil. There are over 1,000 ash pits or ponds dotting the nation, many of them old, poorly monitored, all but forgotten. But every few years, we are reminded that the status quo can lead to disaster, like the coal ash spill this past February into North Carolina's Dan River at a power plant owned by Duke Energy, the biggest utility company in the country. The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
It was an accident. It didn't work the way it should have worked. It did not meet our standards or expectations.
Duke Energy CEO Lynn Good, then only 7 months on the job, had a crisis on her hands. How many tons of ash, do you know, went into the river?
Yes, we released between 30 and 39,000 tons of ash into the river.
Wow.
We moved immediately to repair the pipe and also begin cleaning the river. And we've used this as an opportunity at Duke to raise our standards even higher of all of our basins to ensure and confirm that they were operating safely.
Once the water spilled out of the basin, this is what was exposed. Canyons and ridges of industrial waste the size of 20 football fields, buried right by the river where people fish and swim and get their drinking water. But the accident at Dan River wasn't the first time a coal ash pond collapsed. It happened to another company 6 years ago in Kingston, Tennessee. That spill was more than 100 times larger, smothering homes in toxic muck and choking up the river. After Kingston in 2008, did Duke raise its vigilance?
Yes, there were inspections that went on throughout the industry, and certainly at Duke, where all of the basins were reviewed.
Actually, inspections had been going on for years, including this one in 1986 that Duke itself paid for. It recommended quantitative monitoring of the very pipe that collapsed, saying it was expected to have less longevity. So that first report urging Duke to watch that pipe was 30 years ago, but there were others, 1996, 2001, 2006, advising you to keep watching that pipe over and over. 2009, the EPA warned about the pipe. How could you neglect those?
The results of those inspections indicated that we should monitor, and we were monitoring. And what we were looking for is that the pipe would leak before it failed. But it didn't fail in that way. It failed without leaking.
I don't think Duke even knew what was underneath some of their dams and knew the structural issues.
The spill infuriated Pat McCrory, the pro-business Republican governor of North Carolina. He knows Duke well, having worked there for 29 years. How would you describe or rate Duke's record on dealing with coal ash disposal?
Well, actually, there has been no record regarding coal ash disposal.
They haven't done anything?
Very little, very little. I think the record's been quite poor because, frankly, it's been out of sight, out of mind.
Lesley, we have been generating electricity in this country from coal for decades.
And that means coal ash.
And that ash that has been produced has been stored in accordance with industry standards and practices for decades. We're at a period when the electric system, and certainly Duke's system, is modernizing. We're adding natural gas, we're adding renewables, and we're closing some coal plants.
Fact is, Duke closed the Dan River plant in 2012, and that perplexed the governor.
When I heard about the Dan River plant having a coal ash spill, my first reaction was, wait a minute. That plant's been closed for years. Why are we having a spill at a plant that's not even open?
That's because when they closed the plant, Duke just left the ash pond where it was. In an unprecedented program, Duke has closed half their coal ash plants in North Carolina in the last 3 years, blowing up one after another after another, as the company switches to natural gas. In all cases, they just left the coal ash ponds and basins behind.
This is no way to store industrial waste in large quantities in such a primitive way.
Frank Holloman, an attorney at the Southern Environmental Law Center, says it makes no sense to store coal ash that usually contains toxins like arsenic, mercury, thallium, and cadmium in basins right next to waterways.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out if you dig a earthen unlined hole in the earth next to a river and you put in it a substance that has toxic substances, that is going to leak into the groundwater. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out.
Your organization, you have been suing Duke Energy.
That's correct. Well, what we have hoped is that we could convince Duke, get the coal ash out of these unlined pits, and move it to safe line dry storage away from the waterway.
That's what Duke is already doing with most of its newly generated ash, trucking it to dry lined landfills away from waterways or sending it off for reuse as building material. But the company's big problem is what to do with the 100 million tons of old coal ash it's accumulated in their 32 ponds in North Carolina. Some, like this one, up against people's backyards where children play.
Lesley, we're committed to closing all of the sites.
When you say close, what do you mean by close?
So there are various methods that can be used to close. Certainly excavating them to a lined landfill is one of the methods.
That method would cost up to $8 billion. But Duke is considering two other options: lining the bottom and top of the ponds, but leaving the ash there, which would cost somewhat less, or least pricey at $2 billion, cap in place, which means just covering the top of the pond, with no lining on the bottom.
And typically cap in place is not lined on the bottom, but we would not move forward with a cap in place unless we had a certainty that the water is safe. And so that's where the science comes in, that's where the study needs to be completed, so that we develop smart solutions.
It's called cap in place.
Cap in place.
Right. Now, would that satisfy your organization?
No, it would not. An unlined pit next to a river, a lake, or a drinking water reservoir, it stays wet. Only if you have a lining in it do you separate this industrial waste from the water table and the groundwater. So cap in place is only pollute in place.
Well, obviously I'm not a scientist, but shouldn't you just say, okay, we're going to line them all?
I'd love to tell you there's a simple solution to this. I'd love to tell you that
why isn't that a simple solution?
That ash has been stored for decades can be solved quickly. We like quick answers. We like to pull our cell phone up and do research and get answers right away. But in order to do this right, we do need to do the study. We need to understand what is the groundwater, where is the groundwater? We need to understand the stability of the basin. We need to understand the soil type. I cannot immediately move 100 million tons of ash. It's not a response that makes any sense, doesn't make common sense. As much as I'd love to tell you there's a simple solution, it's one that requires study, and it's one that requires time to complete.
But environmentalists say studying is code for stalling, because this problem isn't new. Duke has been conducting tests around their ash ponds for decades. And 5 years ago, when state regulators demanded to see the data, they found something alarming. The coal ash ponds in all of Duke's 14 plants were either leaking toxic chemicals into rivers and streams or contaminating the groundwater.
Some of the readings that we have found are for elements like iron and manganese, which are naturally occurring.
But 9 of your plants have been found to have groundwater violations for contaminants including lead, sulfate, boron, chromium, thallium, selenium, and arsenic.
So we have had exceedances. And when I said iron and manganese, Lesley, I was talking about the majority of them. We have had instances of other readings as well.
Well, I'm citing your own monitoring statistics, which do say that there have been hazardous chemicals that have entered the groundwater or surface water at all 14 plants by your own admission.
And what we have recommended and will be moving forward with, and the state has recommended, is further assessments so that appropriate steps can be taken. So, Lesley,
further assessments.
I know, I think it's important to understand this.
But even you have to throw your head back and say further assessments. But these results go back years. And to say we need to study more, is a very frustrating thing to have to hear. And I'm not even a citizen of North Carolina.
We have very openly and transparently disclosed these results to work with the regulators to determine whether it really represents a risk.
Does Duke's coal ash today pose any health risk at all?
I believe our system is operating safely.
But local environmentalists showed us leaks from several of Duke's ash ponds, like this one at Cape Fear.
The stream is like this, leaking coal ash into the river 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
After we asked state officials about this particular leak, lab tests were done showing notably elevated concentrations of sulfate, aluminum, iron, manganese, boron, and strontium. The state says the leak doesn't impact the overall health of the river, but is illegal, a violation of the Clean Water Act. Yet environmentalists like Frank Holloman say that over the years, the state never forced Duke to clean up its ash ponds under both Democratic and Republican administrations. How powerful is Duke Energy in the state of North Carolina?
It's the most powerful entity in the state of North Carolina. It spends millions of dollars on political contributions, and it has traditionally had a very close relationship with the state regulators.
Just this year, Governor McCrory cut the budget and staff of the specific department that inspects the ash ponds. The state legislature did pass a law in August requiring Duke to clean up its plants, but only after the company had already volunteered to do that. Earlier, when Holloman tried to sue Duke, he was thwarted by the state, which stepped in and negotiated a settlement that allowed Duke, you guessed it, more time to study and imposed only a paltry fine. Tell everybody how much the fine was.
I don't have that list, but again...
It was $99,111, which
correct.
Does not sound like a big fine.
It wasn't a big fine.
All this has made federal prosecutors suspicious. They impaneled a grand jury to investigate whether Duke or the regulators has done anything illegal to get the state to go easy on the company. Virtually every newspaper in the state of North Carolina came out with editorials claiming that Duke was lax and lawless when it came to the environment and acted like a bully with state regulators.
I recognize that. I disagree with that characterization. It's been a challenging time, a difficult time, lots of voices weighing in, certainly lots of scrutiny and criticism.
But you must take this to heart if there's so much of it, you know?
Of course we do. We take this very seriously, and we're using this as an opportunity to raise our standards even higher, to ensure that our operations are safe. It's our highest priority at Duke.
Later this month, the Environmental Protection Agency is set to announce whether coal ash will be regulated by the federal government as hazardous waste, meaning potentially much tougher disposal rules and oversight.